Welcome, everybody, to the NFL Presidential Address. I am your host, the conductor of the show, the captain, the pilot, and I'm ready to go, man. Week one of the NFL is in the bag. How did we do last week? Well, we could have done better. We didn't do that bad, but we could have done better. I went 3-3 for my clients. I did lose my 5% play and lost about 2 units of action in week one. I went 1-2 in my show best bets, and I went 8-10 across the board. Not very good at all, but it does happen. Last year we had a 5-8, a 4-9, a 3-8 week, and we still ended up 58% on the year. Week two last year was where all the magic started to happen. I went 16-8 across the board in week two of the NFL. If you guys have never watched the NFL Presidential Address, basically what happens is I go down the board top to bottom. I take a look at every game. I give you my thoughts on every game. If there's a bet, if there's not a bet. To give you perspective, we should have about 17 bets in this show. Also, last week's show was an hour and 9 minutes. This week's show will be way shorter than that. And as we get into buys, it'll even be shorter than that. The plan is to get the show under half an hour. As well, Meghan Payton will be joining us as she does every single NFL Presidential Address, and she will be giving out some prop bets that you will find towards the end of the show. As for my client plays, I have 6 going for week 2. You can get them over at WagerTalk.com. Okay, guys, let's get straight into it. Look, we're taping late on Wednesday. I don't know when the show will be up. I want to make a couple of announcements. First and foremost, it's never easy to do these shows on a Wednesday. The injury reports aren't fully out. The weather is still going to change. Line moves are going to happen. Last week, some of the commenters said, hey, Prez, how can you bet this team at -3 when they're -3.5? Well, listen, I can't control what happens after we tape the show. So I can only do my best and give you the lines as they currently are. So let's get into it, shall we? Los Angeles Chargers playing Kansas City, a -4, 54.5 is the total. I'm going to make this one super easy. I'm going to skip discussing this game for 2 reasons. One, I am in action with my clients in this game, so you'll have to purchase the pick. And 2, I don't even know if this show will make it up before the game starts. So let's move to our Sunday card. Miami playing Baltimore. -3.5 for Baltimore. 44.5 is the total. It has been moving around. The total did start at 46. We got down to 44 yesterday, and we had some comeback on the over. And now we're sitting at 44.5. Let's break this down. As for the Miami Dolphins, look, they played great last week against the New England Patriots. Timely turnovers. Their offense really were able to move the ball. We saw one thing. This is going to be the T. Hill show. Tyreek was targeted 12 times last Sunday, and I don't see that stopping. The problem with this Miami team, and it's the same problem they had last year, and it's really something they've just got to fix. They can't run the ball. They couldn't run the ball last year. They couldn't run the ball in the preseason. They couldn't run the ball in week 1. Miami Dolphins last week ran the ball 21 times for 64 yards. That is terrible. I mean, imagine playing golf with just a putter in your bag. It can't be done. We need this Miami team, if they're going to have a run, to find some better balance. As for the Ravens, Lamar looked really good last week. That suggests he's probably got a bad game coming this week. He threw 3 touchdowns last week, 1 interception. He threw the ball short, medium, long. He was running. He looked very comfortable in the pocket. I was impressed. And as far as the D, man, Justin Houston and this defense, 3 sacks, 10 QB hits, And this is for a team that was 22nd in the league last year in sacks. Keep in mind, they had an immobile Joe Flacco to go after, and it was the New York Jets. This Baltimore team, I mean, they just can't stop getting injured. Again, Dobbins, Edwards, they've got O-line injuries. They got injuries all over the defense. Yet somehow they still get it done. How do we bet this game? I'm going to look at taking the under in this game. We have lost some value. It was 46, but I still think we're going to see a very low-scoring game. I think even with Miami's bad run game, the fact is they ran the ball 21 times last week, which means they're trying to establish the run. As for their passes, it's going to be short passes, maybe a couple of long ones to Tyreek, but we really didn't see Tyreek last week getting one of his patented 50-yard down the right side of the field catches. So I expect a slow-moving game from both teams. I would not be surprised if this game ended 20-17. Take under the total in the Miami-Baltimore game. Off to the New York Jets. +6.5. When I wrote this, we've had some money coming in on the Jets. It's now -6 for Cleveland. And it was 40. It is now 39.5. What to make of this Jets team? Well, they just suck. There's a saying in Hebrew, ma nishtana. What does that mean? It means, why should today be any different from any other day? Flacco was dreadful. Their offense was porous. This team converted two of 14 third downs. My God. Teddy and I could have done better. They dropped passes. They fumbled the ball. They couldn't run routes. They couldn't protect the old guy. The old guy couldn't throw the ball. But hey, good news. Good news for Jets fans. Your defense played well in the first half of the game. Congratulations. Find a silver lining somewhere, would you? As for the Browns, I was impressed. This is a good football team. I'll tell you, bottom line, they got it done. 48-yard field goal from their rookie kicker. Their running game was dominant. And I think this is where the Browns, this is their identity, at least until Deshaun Watson comes back. I think this team is going to run. Their offensive line was so good. Their running game was even better. This team is going to be deadly once they figure out their passing game. How should we bet this? Well, I like the Browns here. I like the Browns -6. This is a very good Browns team that knows exactly who they are. Furthermore, I really think the Jets are going to struggle to put up more than 13 points. With the total at 39-40, they are suggesting a 27, 28-point output from Cleveland. I like the under in this game, even at that number. But my play in this game would be the Browns -6. I think we're going to see a 27-13 type football game. And the problem with taking the under is 28-13, that's a loser. Now the game's gone over. So let's stick with the Browns minus the 6 points. On to Washington and Detroit. The total in this game, look, there's money coming in on the Commanders. The total has barely moved. It's still 49, but Washington was +2.5. It has dropped down to 1.5. So Detroit is now -1.5. I was on Washington last week. They were one of my 3 winners for my clients. And look, it was a lucky ending. That is for sure. What did Carson Wentz show us? Well, he showed us he could play. He made some great passes. He orchestrated a comeback at the end of the game. And he clearly is an upgrade from the Washington QB carousel that has been for the last X number of years. The issue with Carson and this offense on a whole is the consistency. One game he looks all world. The next game he's terrible. One play is a 50-yard stunning bomb. The next play is an interception. And we saw this. In the first half of last game, he threw 2 TD passes. And then back-to-back interceptions. This is literally what the Washington Commodores fans are going to have to deal with all year. At his best, he can get it done. At his worst, he's just going to be a nightmare. What I did see was a real problem defense here. They let Jacksonville march up and down the field on them. They allowed 383 yards of offense, and that was against Jacksonville. They basically won the game on their third down defense. Jacksonville only converted 3 of 12 third downs. Those are jet-like numbers. The biggest stat to me was that the Jags were able to run all over this team. They averaged 6.8 yards per run. As for the Lions, well, we spoke in week 1 about the Lions being a covering machine, and they did it again on Sunday with an electric comeback that, although fell short, did get their bettors money. This team has been an ES machine for years. It's very indicative of the fact that the general public just don't want to bet the Detroit Lions. Guys, if you bet the Detroit Lions every week blindly, you will make money. And last year, you would have made a killing. How about Swift? What an awesome week 1. He rushed for 144 yards. On a whole, they lost by a field goal to a team that thinks they're going to make the playoffs. That they won't. As far as I'm concerned, week 1 was a success for the Detroit Lions. How do we bet this game, guys? We're going to go to Detroit. The Lions minus 1.5 versus Washington. I don't have much else to say about this game. If we have discussed this 1,000 times, if it is under two or less, so if it's Detroit -2, -1.5, or -1, you are better off taking them on the money line. So my play in this game, Detroit on the money line. Indianapolis and Jacksonville. The Colts last week. Wow. Just slaughtered a lot of people in Survivor. So did San Fran. So did Denver. And on and on. It was a dreadful week in Survivor. By the way, I'm out of the Survivor contest. All 3 teams went out. San Fran, Indy, and Denver. So there'll be no Survivor picks for the rest of the year because I'm just not going to be doing any research on it. Indianapolis, this was a team that just came into the season. They were expected to win the division, and they ended up just laying an egg until the fourth quarter. They made a great comeback in the fourth quarter, and Matt Ryan was able to move the ball up and down in that quarter. Problem was their kicker. Had their kicker have hit a 42-yarder, this Indianapolis Colts team would have won, and this line would have been around -6. As for the Jacksonville Jaguars, they looked much better than I expected, especially on offense. They ran the ball really well. Lawrence had some pretty good numbers last week as well, and their defense forced 3 very timely turnovers. Jacksonville almost won this game, guys, and I was ultimately impressed with their play. How do we bet this game? I'm looking to take Indianapolis here. Indy -4. The bottom line for me, guys, is that we have a situation here where Indy looked so bad last week that I think they're being undervalued in the marketplace. And we have the similar situation, or the converse situation, of Jacksonville looked so much better than we expected last week that I think that has skewed the line as well. I had this line somewhere around Indianapolis -6.5. We're getting 2.5 points of value here. I'm going to take Indy. This is a great spot to bet on Indy and a crappy spot to bet on the Jags. Now we're talking about Tampa Bay and New Orleans. And just to let you guys know, we got a lot of money coming in on New Orleans right now. This line was -3 right up until last night late. Now it is -2.5. And let me tell you, when a line moves off of 3, there is a lot of smart money coming in. So New Orleans is clearly taking the money. The total in this game as well, it's been bet down. So a lot of money coming in on the under. It was 45.5. It is now 44. Tampa Bay. Look, last week with my biggest play of the week was on Dallas, and that was a bonehead, stupid, shoot me upside the head, slap me sideways. I'm embarrassed, but it's how I felt at the time. And You got to make adjustments. Tampa Bay last week, their defense was unbelievable. Their pass rush last week was all world. Now, I know Dallas's O-line is a complete mess, but I'm telling you, Dak had no time to do a damn thing. Julio Jones looked phenomenal. I love the way they utilized him. They had him run that Tyreek Hill type play where he's coming across the line of scrimmage. That is a play I don't remember ever seeing happen in Atlanta, and he did it twice. He also made some outstanding catches. Jesus, between those wide Evans, him, Godwin, this is a wide receiving core from the gods. And their running game last week, 127 yards on the ground by Fournette. And what I think we're going to see this year, guys, is I think we're going to see a run-heavy Tampa Bay offense. Bruce Arians has never had a run-heavy offense. He's always about passing. Now they have a new coach in Bowles. He is going to slow this game down. We are going to see a lot more ground and pound. That should open up a lot of space for the wide receivers. I'm impressed with the Buccaneers. As for the Saints, Michael Thomas is back, baby. And look, he looked amazing in the fourth quarter. It wasn't until he took the game over did the Saints start looking good on offense and moving the ball. With that said, New Orleans has some issues and should never have been down 16 points in the fourth quarter against a Falcons team. It was their linemen on both sides of the ball that gave them problems. And we expected the New Orleans defensive line especially to be much, much better. I was very surprised. This team couldn't protect Jameis, who was hurried all game, sacked 4 times. And this defense didn't get one single sack on Mariota, which is a real surprise. With that said, how do we bet this game? Guys, I'm passing flat out on this game. I feel like there's an argument to be made on the fact that the Buccaneers looked better than they probably were last week. New Orleans looked way worse than they probably are. I think if anything, I would lean on the under, but I am passing outright in this football game. And there won't be a lot of passes this week. Guys, real quick reminder, Meghan Payton, Sean Payton's daughter, will be coming up soon. She's got prop bets for you all. As well, I have 6 plays for my clients up for week 2, including a play on the Thursday night game. Let's move to Carolina and the New York Giants. Line here is Carolina plus 2.5, but it has gone down to 2. There is some money coming in on the Panthers. The total in this game was 42.5. It has been bet up by a full point to 43.5. And guys, that's a huge line move. I mean, I know it's a 1-point line move, but 43 is a crucial number in totals. How many times do games end 20-20 and then somebody kicks a field goal and now it's 23-20? What number does 23 and 20 equal? 43. So the fact that this line has moved from 42.5 to 43.5 shows you that there is money coming in, and smart money at that, on the over in this game. Okay, the New York Giants. Wow, Barkley. Whoa, he went off. 194 total yards and a successful 2-point convo to win the game. He had a career game last week. And the funny thing is, I think he's going to do this all year. So long as Barkley stays healthy, this team is going to be in every single game they play. Look, they won the game. And I think it was the wrong call to go for it on 4th down. The reason being, there was a minute left on the clock. I think they would have been better taking that clock down and then kicking a field goal and going into overtime. It pretty much forces Tennessee to move the ball fast, which they did. They got into field goal range and they screwed it up with another missed kick. The kickers last week. Poor performance. But they won the game. So kudos for the G-Man. 1-0 to start the year. As for the Panthers, this team looked so much better than last year in all facets of the game, but especially in that fourth quarter and making that comeback. They showed a ton of moxie. With that said, I don't understand their game plan. Christian McCaffrey touched the ball 9 times until the final drive. 9 times. Imagine Derrick Henry touching the ball 9 times in a game. Kamara, 9 times. It just made no sense to me. But I think the Panthers will find their way during the season. How am I betting this game? I like the New York Giants here, guys. I like them at -2. Honestly, I don't really have that much to say here. I think both teams are better than we expected them to be. I think both teams showed a lot of gumption last week. The Panthers made a massive comeback and almost won the game last week, and the Giants played great. And their coach showed, look, even though I disagree with the call, the team must have been super stoked. I mean, think about Russell Wilson on Denver going like, bugger you, you idiot coach. You're not going to give me the ball on 4th down and 5. You're going to try a kick that's been made once or twice in the history of sport. Yeah. The Giants don't feel that way. They feel like they got a coach who is in it to win it. I think that is a great thing moving forward. Take the New York Giants. Now we move to the New England Patriots Pittsburgh Steelers game. We had New England as a pick not 24 hours ago. Now they're -2, and I agree with that. The total has come down a little, but it is still at 40. I love the under last week in New England. I'm telling you guys flat out, I'm going to look to bet the under in the New England game every single week. Now, I understand this team last season, were one of the top scoring teams in the league, 27 points a game. That's not going to be the way it goes down this year. I think this will be a bottom 10 scoring team. I think this team will be a team that relies heavily on the run. So I am looking to bet unders in all New England games. The Pats were much better than the score indicated last week. Much better. Guys, they started the game with an outstanding drive. They got it all the way down to the end zone. They threw an interception, which was tipped, an unlucky interception, and they couldn't really get scoring after that. They had a terrible breakdown on defense on the last play of the first half, something that just doesn't happen with the New England Patriots, and they turned the ball over too many times. All of these things are fixable, and I think we'll see a much better version of this team coming into week 2. Furthermore, they also did not convert at all on 4th downs last week, which was a problem for a lot of teams. Ask Russell Wilson. Steelers. I was impressed. Good effort last week. Nice comeback. Good throw by Trubisky towards the end of the game. It was the right spot to bet them last week. I don't think it's the right spot to bet them this week. I think the Steelers team is not nearly as good as, well, beating the Bengals. I think that was an anomaly. It was just a really bad spot for Cincinnati. The Steelers, man, last week, they put up less than 200 yards in the air last week. They were the 6th worst team on the ground last week. They also stunk on 3rd down conversions. And this week, they play a much better defense than they did against Cincinnati. What are we going to do in this game, guys? I'm looking at playing New England on the money line at -125. I'm also looking at playing the under. Man, I really wanted this under to be slightly higher for me to throw a real big play on it. But I got to believe that this game has 20-13 written all over it. I'd be surprised if the Steelers put up more than 13. And without Watt, I think New England is going to be able to move the ball up and down the field. And with that said, I don't think they're going to necessarily convert them into touchdowns, but they will into field goals. 2013 type game. Take New England on the money line and under the total. Now we go to the Atlanta Rams. Well, it is the Atlanta Falcons versus the Rams. -10.5 for the Rams. A total of 47.5. And I was super impressed with the Falcons last week, especially Mariota. This team, quite frankly, should be 1-0 coming into week 2. Man, what was interesting was the defensive coordinator, Dan Pease. He kept sending guys all night long. They got 4 sacks. They kept Jameson out of sync most of the night. The question I and everybody asks, why the hell did they stop sending pressure in the fourth quarter? That was literally what changed the game. I don't think they make that mistake coming this week against the Rams. As for the Rams, what just a terrible game against the Bills on Thursday night prime time. Every aspect of the game. Their coach was terrible. Their QB was crap. Their defense was shit. They need to throw that game out the window and move on. This is still the Super Bowl champs. They still have basically the same team minus Von Miller. And I think we're going to get a get-right game for the Rams coming up. With all that said, I can't take the Rams here. Minus 10.5. Look, the Falcons looked good. Mariota moved the ball. Their defense was all over Jameis. Stafford's got a bad elbow. He struggled. They were completely out of sync. The Rams can't find a running game right now. I got to take the Falcons. Falcons plus the 10.5. Seattle against San Fran. And this Seattle team, they broke my heart. Well, it wasn't them. It was Denver that broke my heart last week. But I was so impressed with Seattle last week. Just outstanding. And right out of the gate, Geno Smith looked excellent. But they should have lost the game. That is just a fact. Like, I understand people can sit there and say, oh, well, they caused 2 fumbles at the goal line. No, they didn't. Firstly, one of the fumbles was a butt fumble. Mark Sanchez should be pretty thrilled to know that he is now not the only guy to make a butt fumble. That wasn't because the Seahawks were so outstanding. I get that they pushed the lineman back, which, took space away. But the bottom line is, what is the percentage chance of a team having 10 plays at the goal line and coming away with 3 points? It's like 5%. I mean, I made that up. I don't know, but it's very, very low. Denver lost that game last week. Seattle didn't win it. Either way, though, Smith looked good. Their defense looked outstanding. I was super impressed with their play calling as well. And I was very impressed with Geno Smith's poise. That touchdown throw to Will Disley, that showed a ton of veteranship in the sense that he was able to run the ball down the field while keeping his eyes open to find a wide receiver. And he was able to get rid of the ball within millimeters or inches, as you Americans might say, from the line of scrimmage. As for the 49ers, oh my God. But throw that game out the window, guys. The field was so bad. It's not indicative of Chicago. It's not indicative of San Fran. But with that said, it's just not an excuse. This team was favored by 7. They were completely dominating the football game, and they totally fell apart. This San Fran team had 12 penalties last week. It cost them 99 yards. You can't win games with 12 penalties and 99 free yards to your opponents. I think we're going to see a better San Fran team this week, but I can't bet them. I'm taking the Hawks plus the 9. How do you take the Niners here? The team looked so bad last week, and Seattle looks like a team that's going to slow the game down. Man, this Seattle wide receiving core, just unbelievable. And the running back, amazing. Geno Smith has weapons, guys. And so long as he can stand upright and take his time, he's going to find those open wide receivers. I think Seattle slows games down. I think their defense is stout. I think we're going to see them run the ball half the time. And they're getting 9 points. I know everyone has high expectations on San Fran this year and low ones on the Hawks, but it is better to recognize when you are wrong early than keep pounding the same shit over and over again. I think Seattle is much better than anticipated. The Niners are much worse. This line is shocking to me. Take the Hawks plus 9. And now we're going to move to Cincinnati and Dallas. Before we go there, just real quick, it's not going to be a half an hour show. It's going to be longer, but it will not be an hour and 9 minutes. That I promise. Stay with us all the way to the end. I've got 3 best bets for you. And of course, Meghan Payton will be on as well. She's awesome. I am super impressed with Meghan Payton. What I'm not super impressed with is the Dallas Cowboys. Dallas right now finds themselves at plus 7.5. The line was 44.5, the total, guys. It's been bet down to 41.5. There's so much. Brink trucks have been lined up outside of sports books to bet this under. Man, when you move a number from under 44.5 to 41.5, whoa, probably look to bet the over because there's clearly value there. Although with that said, I'm not going to be betting the over in this game. Let's talk about Dallas. Dallas looked just terrible last week. Absolutely horrific. Their running game was bad. Their offensive line last week was so horrendous that Tampa Bay is still in the backfield in Dallas partying right now. I mean, Dak had 0 time to throw the ball. Zeke could not get going, but I just didn't understand the play calling. Like, if you're going to get pressured all game and you got Tony Pollard and Zeke Elliott, why aren't you running wheel routes? Why aren't you running screens? Why aren't you using Schultz at tight end on a quick slant? Why aren't you making these adjustments? I got a lot of respect for Kellen Moore. I think Kellen Moore will be a coach in this league someday. I think Kellen Moore will be a coach for the Cowboys someday. I just don't know what the hell he was thinking last week. And keep in mind, this was the number 1 offense in the league last year. This team averaged 10% of what this team put up 10% of what they averaged last year. In other words, they averaged 31 points a game on offense last year. This game, 3 freaking points. 3 points. With that said, their defense looked awesome. I mean, talk about bend and not break. Tom Brady, Fournette, they were all over Dallas, up and down the field. They just didn't score. And that's how to win games. Let the teams move the balls between the 20s. That's fine. But once they get into the red zone, field goals only, baby. And Micah, little boy Micah Parsons, how good is this kid? This kid weighs less than Josh Allen. And he might be the best rushing defenseman in all of football right now. Okay. Bengals, not impressed with the way the Bengals played last week at all, but it was really to be expected. I'm throwing that game out the window. The biggest thing that really confused me was their O-line last week. Their offensive line just didn't play well at all against the Steelers and TJ Watt. But it is a brand new unit, and it's going to get better and better and better as the year progresses. The bottom line is I'm taking Dallas plus the 7.5 in this game. Why? Well, because whenever you think a team is done, whenever you want to stick a fork in it, that is the time to bet that team. And although I'm not impressed with Dallas, I just think they're getting too many points, and I'm going to take advantage of that. I'm taking Dallas plus the 7 in this game. Now we move to Houston and Denver. And really, talk about tale of 2 teams. Houston was super impressive in game 1, and we saw it coming. If you watched WagerTalk today, Teddy told you about Houston. The pundits were all over Houston. I was mentioning Houston. I said to you guys, Houston is going to be an ATS machine this year. I'm telling you, you don't need to watch these videos. You bet Detroit and Houston all year, every week, blind. You are going to make money, as you did last year. This team looked really good on both sides of the ball for about 3 quarters. But like all bad teams, they found a way to lose. Okay, they didn't lose, but you know what I'm saying. They had that game won. They let Taylor put up 177 yards on the ground. Matty Ice threw for almost 400 yards. We were talking about his arm being dead. 400 yards. Who are these Texans? We don't really know still. I'm convinced they're going to be a hard out. But man, Mills didn't complete one single pass the entire fourth quarter. And the offense as a whole, the whole offense, put up 12 yards in the fourth quarter. You think that's an aberration? In the first quarter, Mills completed 2 passes, and the Texans put up 13 yards. But man, were they good in the second and third quarter. And I think that's what we're going to see with Houston all year. I think they're going to have good games and bad games, good quarters, bad quarters, good drives, bad drives. Going to be a tough out, though. As for Denver, shame on you. Shame on your coach. Shame on your offensive line. Shame on the play calling. Shame on everything to do with you. I am mad at you. You suck. Okay, I think Denver's going to be really awesome this year. They dominated that football game against Seattle, and I hope they learn from their mistakes. I blame the coaches, guys, flat out. And I'm going to tell you a couple of reasons why. Firstly, Russell Wilson didn't run the ball once. Not one single time. There was no quarterback draws. There was no play action passes where he came out the other side. Nothing. They didn't utilize Russell Wilson the way he's supposed to be utilized. They will start to figure that out as well. How the hell you can kick a ball? It's been done like once or twice in the history of football to kick a ball that far instead of trying to go for it on 4th and 5. Have we not seen Russell Wilson convert 4th and 5s? If I recall, I think he converted a 4th and 18 in a playoff game once. I mean, I could be wrong. It could have been lower, 4th and 14 or whatever. But 4th and 5, that should be child's play for him. Man, there were so many mistakes this Denver team made, dropping the ball. Oh, they were an inch. His toe was an inch out of bounds on the touchdown pass that wasn't a touchdown. With all that said, Bradley Chubb is back. He looked outstanding. I'm telling you guys, I'm looking to bet on Denver. I think them losing the first game is actually going to give us value moving forward. How do I bet this game in particular? I want to take Houston here, but I just feel like this is an awful spot for them. They played their heart outs in game 1, and Denver has to be livid about what went down in game 1. I'm going to pass on the side, but I do take over the total. Now we move to Arizona and Vegas, and now we move on. I could talk about these games, but this is getting long, and I do not have a bet for you in this game. I am outright passing. So let's go to the Sunday night matchup. The Chicago Bears and Green Bay Packers. The line was 10. It's now 9.5. People are putting money on the Bears. The total 43. It is now 42.5. When you look at Chicago, guys, this last game, throw it out the window. But with that said, they showed a lot of moxie, a lot of gumption. They showed themselves to be a team that might be slowly trying to figure out how to win. I can't take that game seriously in San Fran. San Fran didn't show up. The sun didn't show up. The field was a complete disaster. I'm throwing that game out the window. But when you look at the Packers, what a brutal start for Green Bay. They looked like a total mess on offense. And even their defense, man, people are talking about this being top 3, top 5 unit in the league. They were eaten up. This vaunted D had 1 sack, 0 turnovers, and literally rolled out the red carpet for Justin Jefferson. I mean, this team was just awful, but most importantly, their body language was terrible. Man, Aaron Rodgers, you are a suck. Period. A suck. Yeah, your wide receiver dropped the ball at the beginning of the game that would have changed the entire outcome of that game or the entire complexion of that game. But you don't need to drop your shoulders, start gazing, looking like you're all pissed off, or hell, Jesus, dude, you're only down 7 points. Get your act together and fix it, for hell, for Jesus. Anyway, I was on the over in that game, stupid twats. What are we going to do in this game? We're going to take Green Bay. We've seen this story play out a million times. Who is the guy that said, relax, don't worry? That would be Aaron Rodgers last year and the year before. This team seems to come out of the gate terribly every year, and then they get it together. Plus, Aaron Rodgers owns Chicago. Bottom line, I see this as a 31-10 type football game. Tennessee going into Buffalo. The line is -10 for Buffalo. The total in this game, 49 points. And if we look at Tennessee, man, they laid a stinker last week. Henry had only 82 yards rushing. Their kicker sucked crap, literally and figuratively. And their D couldn't get a stop when they needed it. With that said, their defense did sack Jones 5 times, and that was without much blitzing. The Titans were all over Jones all game long. But that's with the New York Giants and their O-line. I don't think that's going to happen in this game against Buffalo. What can you say about Buffalo's Week 1 performance other than a couple of interceptions? I bow to you, the Bills. That was about as close to a perfect game as you can get. This game, we're taking Tennessee, guys, plus the 10. I mean, anytime you can get a team that can run the ball all game long and they're getting more than a touchdown, you have to look at taking that team. Because the bottom line is, Buffalo is better than Tennessee. Buffalo is going to win this football game. But Tennessee is going to slow this game down to a crawl. They don't want Josh Allen with the ball. Tennessee will put one 8-minute drive together at some point in that game. You watch, and maybe even 2 long drives. I think Buffalo wins this game, but I'm getting 10 points here. I'm taking the Titans. Now we move on to the final game of the week, Minnesota against Philadelphia. The line in this game has been bet down from 51 to 51.5 to 50.5. The line is staying around the same. Philadelphia at -2.5. How good is this Minnesota team? Well, let's start by saying they're not as good as they were in Week 1, but they are pretty damn good. I have been telling you guys all year, bet Minnesota to win the division. They were plus 375, and I still think they're going to win the division. Their defense looked unbelievable, and Smith was a beast. Justin Jefferson, all world, 184 yards, 2 touchdowns. Cook was incredible. Like, he was lost in that game. If you guys go watch that game tape, you will see that Delvin Cook was unbelievable in that game. That was a statement game for Minnesota against a division rival, one that they have to beat to win the division. They came out and they got the job done. Philly, well, they looked really good against Detroit, and then they looked really bad. This was a tale of 2 games in one, with Philly absolutely rolling on offense and taking complete control of the game, only then to fall apart and let the Lions back in. Philly did not cover 4, but yet they did get the game down. 1. A.J. Brown, what a beast. He caught 10 passes for 155 yards. He literally took the game over. The Philly D, though, is going to be a real problem moving forward. They let the Lions score 35 points on them. The Lions ran for 181 yards, 6.5 yards a carry. It is important to note, this unit did not play much together in the preseason, so perhaps they will turn it around. What are we going to do in this game, guys? We're going to take Philly minus the 2.5. If this drops to 2, take Philly on the money line, and we're going to take over the total. I will be looking to bet Philly and Minnesota over the total throughout the year. And that's really it, guys. That is the board, top to bottom. We got Meghan Payton coming up right now, and after that, I will be back with your 3 best bets of the week.
Thank you, Prez. Happy NFL Week 2. We survived Week 1. I've got 3 bets for you this week. One is major plus money because I'm looking to win big. Let's cash in some real money this week. We're going to start off nice and easy, though. My first bet, I'm blown away by how the sportsbook had this game. Let's talk Saints and Bucks real quick because the Saints are home. They're a 2.5-point underdog. This is crazy to me because the Bucks do terrible against the Saints. The Saints have swept the Bucks the past 3 years in a row in the regular season. When's the last time Tom Brady has beaten the Saints in the regular season? Not when he was a Buccaneer. He was in New England. It was back in 2017. Let's also talk about the additions that the Saints had during the offseason. They got wide receiver Jarvis Landry. They got a healthy Mike Thomas back, and you've got a great rookie wide receiver in Chris Olave. This is all the reason that I am on Saints money line at plus 128 in week 2 against the Bucks. Number 2, let's stick with the running backs here for a bit because I like some underdogs. We've been talking Seattle Seahawks. Everyone was riding them off. Geno Smith. Well, what happened last week? They showed Russell Wilson and the Broncos right up. And that was partly due to Geno Smith, but that was also due to a player named Rashad Penny. Rashad Penny had 60 yards for 12 carries in week 1. The Seattle Seahawks only ran the ball 13 times. They're not going to get away with that against the Niners in week 2. The Niners have one of the best pass rushes in the NFL. So what does that mean? Pete Carroll's going to rely more on the run game, which means Rashad Penny is going to get more carries, which means more yards, which means take Rashad Penny over on his rushing yards. The prop line hasn't come out yet, but I'm looking for it somewhere at the 73-yard mark. If it's under that, take the over. And number 3, we are sticking with the Seattle Seahawks. We are sticking with the unders. I told you before, I want to get you guys big money, plus 350 money. And the only way to do that is to bet on the Seattle Seahawks money line against the 49ers. The Seahawks proved themselves to some degree last week against the Broncos. You look at Geno Smith. Geno Smith had an 82.1 completion percentage. He threw for 195 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. And you can't say the same for Trey Lance. I understand the weather was terrible. It was a bad game in Chicago against the Bears, but Trey Lance had a 46.1 completion percentage, no touchdowns, and interception. I like Seattle to win this game. They might not be the better team, but they've got the edge in week 2. So in conclusion, the 3 bets I am taking is Saints money line, the over on Rashad Penny's rushing yards, and Seahawks money line for some big cash wins in week 2. Thank you, Prez. Make sure you tune back next week for more Payton's picks and props.
Awesome stuff, Meghan. Privileged to have you with us. Say hi to your dad. Tell him coffee or dinner next week. I'm free. Let's get into the show best bets, shall we? We're going to take the Seattle Seahawks at +9. We're going to take the Cleveland Browns at -6. And we're going to take Baltimore and New England under the total of 40.5. I have a teaser, guys, but it is for my clients, so you need to grab that over at WagerTalk.com. Other than that, I'm passing on teasers, so that's it. Those are your 3 show best bets. Guys, I have a 6-pack of bets up for my clients in week 2. They come with all of this information. I mean, everything you're hearing in the NFL Presidential Address, you get that plus more when you buy my all-access pass. I take apart every single game on the board all the way down. Last week, it was 17 pages long, but that did discuss how the teams were going to, how I was looking to bet the teams moving forward. This week, it's singularly focused on the games, and it's still 9 pages long. So take advantage of all my hard work. We had a great season last year. We had a great week 2 last year. We're going to do it all again this year. Guys, lots of love. I read all your comments. I respond to a bunch of them. It is a privilege to do this show. We will see you next week for week 3. Namaste.